Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to Switch to Life. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about something that's not really a DreamWorks property, but DreamWorks did take this IP and do a TV show with it, or should I say two TV shows. That, of course, is Jurassic Park. And today, we're reviewing the original 1993 movie. And I'm just going to say it, despite the fact it came out 30 years ago, this movie is a cinematic masterpiece, and you have to watch it. If you haven't, you have wasted your life, because this movie has changed cinema for all time. And I could be wrong about this, but the reason I say that is because this is the very first movie that managed to use CGI in a way that made it look authentic. Sure, I could say the same thing about the Star Wars classics, but in my opinion, those special effects are kind of cheesy. Here, even though it's been 32 years since the movie came out, the CGI, while definitely aged, still looks absolutely authentic. And in my opinion, that actually makes it better than most of the CGI that's used in modern day movies. Like, you can walk into a Marvel movie and say, yeah, the actors aren't in any real danger. That's clearly fake. But here, you're just blown away by the technology they had in the 1990s, and you're wondering, how the heck did they deliver something so good? And if you are wondering, they used animatronic puppets and sculptures to bring the dinosaurs to life, and then they used CGI to do some special effects to make the dinosaurs even more realistic, and that's really cool. And the fact that they used animatronics and puppets makes the actors acting even more believable. We actually get a sense that they're in danger, especially because at one point they actually were in danger. So, spoiler alert, but once the danger actually gets started, there's a scene where Tim and Lex are inside of the Jurassic Park vehicle and the T-Rex crashes through the roof. That actually wasn't in the script. That happened because the animatronic broke and the stand that was holding up the T-Rex was actually falling, and thus the head broke through the roof and scared the kids genuinely. So they kept it in the movie, and that's really cool. That's probably the most famous example, but again, the fact they're using real animatronics instead of just CGI is actually making it so the actors acting can come across as way more believable and real genuine. And I really love that. All of the actors in this movie brought their A game. Now, we're not really going to dive too much into the story since this movie is almost 32 years old and it's a cinematic masterpiece. Everybody knows about it. And if you somehow have never heard of Jurassic Park, I don't believe you. So with that in mind, here's a brief recap. Jurassic Park is about a billionaire named John Hammond, who had an idea to create a theme park based on bringing dinosaurs back to life using genetic science. Now, that's actually a really cool idea, and I love the way that they portray this, because after 65 million years of decomposition, surely there's not going to be enough DNA found in fossils, right? Well, that's true. Turns out he looked to another source. Also, 65 million years ago, there were mosquitoes, and sometimes mosquitoes would get stuck in amber. That amber would become fossilized and preserve the mosquito along with the dinosaur DNA that the mosquito had drunk. So, after preserving most of the DNA from the said mosquito and using it to create dinosaurs, he then filled the gene sequence gaps with frog DNA, and thus dinosaurs were created. And so he created his theme park, which is called Jurassic Park. But in order to have it sign off and not deal with the lawyers, he has to get approval from 3 scientists. He brings Alan Grant, who is a paleontologist, someone who studies fossils and dinosaurs, a paleobotanist named Dr. Sattler, who studies fossilized plants, and of course Ian Malcolm, who's played by the ever-iconic Jeff Goldblum. And he is a chaotician, which means he studies chaos theory. Yeah, that term should definitely be familiar to you guys if you're a fan of DreamWorks. But essentially, it just means that whenever there's peace, there's bound to be something bad that's going to happen. That's just the way the world works. And chaos is unpredictable, and he wants to try to find ways to predict it and learn from it. John Hammond also wants to make sure that he caters to a target demographic, which is, of course, kids, so he invites his grandchildren to visit the island with these scientists. Which brings me to another point, and that is the writing for this movie. The writing is simply amazing, especially when it comes to the character development, especially with Alan Grant's character. At the start of the movie, he's kind of this adult man who doesn't really want to have kids because he doesn't really like them. But with a little bit of pressure from Ellie and hanging out with Tim and Lex, he learns to actually enjoy having kids as company. And, well, unfortunately, it doesn't really go anywhere in the later installments, but the fact that we actually get to see Alan Grant evolve as a person is really cool. And it's not just Grant who's a really good character. All of the characters in this movie are written really good, especially when it comes to the jokes. Also, the morals that are in this movie is really good. I loved how they kept bringing up the lessons, which is like how humanity thinks that we can control everything, but in actuality, nothing can be controlled, and that's one of our biggest flaws. And of course, life finds a way. That's a really big one. But my personal favorite is when Ian Malcolm says,
"Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should."
Anyway, back to the story. They begin their tour of Jurassic Park. And, well, Jurassic Park is a really cool idea. You get to explore a zoo filled with dinosaurs that are brought back to life. And I love how the movie opens up with a sense of wonder and awe, but then we get the PG-13 rating as it dives more into the horror aspect. But keep in mind, these guys aren't monsters. The dinosaurs, they're just normal animals who are trying to live their life. If you want real monsters, look at the hybrids of Jurassic World. The dinosaurs here in Jurassic Park, they're just normal animals, but they're still predators. They're still dangerous, and that's what's scary about them. It's not like a monster movie where you can just walk in and say, yeah, but we're never going to get a monster like that. Here, these monsters actually did exist 65 million years ago, and if they were suddenly brought back, all the chaos that we see unfold on screen would be horrifying, and that's what makes this movie so good. Of course, these are kind of movie monsters mixed with dinosaurs because, well, sometimes the movie creators like Steven Spielberg do have a bit of creative liberty with the dinosaurs and the source material. For instance, the famous Dilophosaurus scene where it sputes acid spit at Dennis Nedry, that doesn't happen in real life. The Dilophosaurus also doesn't have a frill. There's no scientific evidence of that. It's just a theory. Then, of course, there's the fact that there's the velociraptors, and they're supposedly 6 feet tall. In real life, velociraptors are only 3 feet. In this movie, Alan Grant compares them to 6-foot turkeys and killing machines. He's not wrong about the fact that they're killing machine turkeys, but he is wrong about the 6-foot thing. Honestly, I don't know why they didn't take the approach of bringing in an actual 6-foot dromaeosaurid, which is the raptor dinosaurs, like a Utah raptor. That would have been really cool. But either way, these velociraptors are super cool to watch on screen. It's amazing what they managed to do. I especially love how smart they are. The fact that they can open doors, not to mention the fact that they can, communicate with each other in the later movies is really awesome. And of course, there's the kitchen scene, which is just mwah, chef's kiss. And so let's move back into the story. So all of the characters are taking a tour, and it's supposedly safe because they spared no expense in safety precautions, as well as making sure people have a fun time. Things go sideways when there's a hurricane coming that is going to cause a massive storm over the island. And, well, it makes it even worse when another scientist who's working as an employee at the park named named Dennis Nedry, who's in charge of the security, is actually bought off by another rival company named Biosyn to steal 15 embryos from the genetics lab and bring them over to Biosyn for $15 million. $1 million per viable embryo. And, well, it was a pretty good plan right up until the storm made it so he crashed his car and died at the hands of a Dilophosaurus. Which, speaking of, this movie is also based off of a book, and there's a lot of differences, one of which is the fact that that Dilophosaurus scene isn't as horrifying as it is in the books. But despite that, I would say that the movie is way better than the book. For instance, Tim was kind of this big brother compared to Lex, who was this 3-year-old little girl, and she did nothing for the story. In the movie, she does a lot of important things that gives her some unique character without overshadowing Tim, which is really cool. Also, in the book, John Hammond is a rich billionaire tycoon who only cares about money and profits, and I didn't really like that.
And we can charge anything we want, $2,000 a day, $10,000 a day, and people will pay it. And then there's the merchandise.
In the movie, he genuinely wants to inspire people and cater to bringing them a lot of joy, and that's really cool.
This park was not built to cater only for the super rich. Everyone in the world has the right to enjoy these animals.
Sure, they will. What, we'll have a coupon day or something.
But anyway, back to the story. When Dennis Nedry turned off the security so he could get away with his plan, he essentially made it so all the dinosaurs could escape the park. And I love how the movie takes a two-pronged approach with the storytelling at this point. There's the main team, which includes Grant trying to keep Tim and Lex alive as they navigate this super cool but also super dangerous jungle biome. And of course, there's also the damage control team, who is trying to find some way to bring the park back to its normal settings. Unfortunately, by that point, according to Ian Malcolm and Chaos Theory, the park is too far gone and they have to leave it all behind. And I love how it's portrayed. There's just so much death and destruction and chaos and all of it. It's just super cool. And I love the genuine danger. And it's not just from the dinosaurs. At one point, Tim literally gets electrocuted by a fence. And it's amazing how much they're able to pack into this horror movie. So, while they do try to save the park, they simply just can't, and instead, all they can do is just get the phones back online and call for reinforcements to help come rescue them from the Isla Nublar Island. After getting into a final battle with the Velociraptors and eventually being saved by the T-Rex of all things, they manage to escape and say goodbye to a horrifying chapter of their lives. Though it's not going to be the last time, because this is a very famous franchise that's already getting a 7th movie coming out this summer, and we'll be reviewing everything from the Jurassic Park franchise leading up to this movie. Of course, if you ever only watch one Jurassic installment, make sure that it's this one. Not only because it's the first movie, but because it's the best movie. Out of every single sequel that came out after, this is still the most superior one. It did everything right. It had horror, action, wonder, and amazement, as well as great acting, incredible music. I completely forgot to mention the music. It is so iconic. And just everything about this movie is perfect. It completely changed how we view cinema 30 years ago, and that's really saying something. But hey, what did you expect from Steven Spielberg? I mean, the guy's a legend. But with that in mind, thank you guys so much for watching this review, and if you made it to this part, what do you guys think of the movie? Also, be sure to comment down below what your favorite dinosaur is, and also what your favorite death from this movie is. That's going to be a really fun discussion. My favorite will probably have to be the clever girl scene with Robert Muldoon. But with that in mind, I hope that you all are staying safe out there. You know, not just from the dinosaurs, but in general. And make sure that you are subscribed to the channel so that you can keep up with my videos. And of course, if you want to really support the channel, be sure to join my membership program. But with that in mind, make sure that you're staying safe out there, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye-bye.
I guess it means the power's off. That's not funny.
That was great.